Okay, thank you, Allison. My name's Pat Bennett Foreman, and I've been a writer and trainer for the Speak Up School since we started our work in 2019. I'm president of the Washington State Organization of Delta Kappa Gamma, and that's an organization for leading women educators dedicated to improving education, including through advocacy work with legislators. We're proud to partner with the League of Women Voters to provide the Speak Up School training modules. As has previously been explained, the purpose of the school is to provide you with background information and skills to help ensure that when you do testify, it's as effective as possible, to help you feel comfortable and confident about testifying, essentially to ignite that superpower that Allison was just talking about. But let's not get the cart before the horse. Before you can testify, you need to plan and create your presentation. So testimony comes before testifying. And in this session, we're going to talk about the hows of writing effective testimony. Our goal is to help you feel comfortable putting together a testimony statement by identifying the parts of effective testimony, by examining some tools that will make writing a testimonial statement easier, and by practicing writing parts of that testimonial. You should be able to use these skills and tools that we're sharing today in a variety of settings, testifying on any topic, meeting with any legislator or decision maker, any group.
Pat, this is Karen. We're not quite seeing your full screen. Do you want to maximize your screen? We're seeing parts of your desktop as you share.
Are you seeing this? Are you seeing?
We're seeing the presentation, but we're also seeing parts of your desktop. So you might just want to go to the top and maximize the screen.
The problem is, hang on, I might have to stop share to do that. But oh.
I think it would just be a little bigger if we saw the full screen. Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt. Yeah, we're still seeing part of your desktop, but it's okay. That's all right. Go ahead.
All right. Okay. I'll try and fix that as we go along, but the problem is that it's being covered up by all of the options under share, and so I can't get to that portion of my screen. I'm just gonna move on. So what is testimony? The dictionary definition indicates that testimony is a declaration or statement that's given in evidence of a position. And we note two key features here that are important for us today. First, testimony is a written document. It's the content of what's being said when you testify, or when you talk to a decision maker, or even when you submit a written statement. So testifying is the delivery of your testimony. Testimony is written, testifying is oral. I'd like to do just kind of a quick poll. If you can, Allison, if you can put that up. Just respond here. Have you ever, check anything that applies, argued a position with somebody, written a letter to an editor, written to your legislator or congressional representative, met one-on-one, spoken before a board, provided testimony in a hearing?
Mm-hmm. 52 out of 60 people. We're getting there.
We're getting there.
Most everybody's argued with a position with somebody.
Okay, I think that we can we can probably call it there, Allison. It
Thanks.
clarifies the point. As you can see, yeah, almost all of us have argued a position at some time with someone. We've been called upon to speak about issues in one way or another. I'm really excited to see how many people have written to a legislator or congressional representative or met with one. So this is a really, it's kind of an advanced group here. I'm loving that. So our goal today is to make sure that you have the information and skills to make those meetings and those communications as effective as possible. Thanks, Allison. From examples and from the literature about effective testimony, we know that there are certain building blocks that make a testimony effective. First, effective testimony establishes your credentials, who you are, lets people know. Secondly, it identifies the critical point, the issue, the topic that you're testifying about. Third, the best testimony tells a story that engages the audience, or in this case, the decision maker or legislator that you're talking to. Fourth, facts or evidence to support your points are succinctly provided, and consequences of not following your suggestions or recommendations, if you know them, are spelled out. And lastly, effective testimony makes a specific ask, what you want the decision maker to do. In the handouts that you should have been able to access, hopefully, there was a handout 4.1 called the Handy Guide for crafting your message. It's a handy way to remember these essential components. So let's look at each of those. First, if I can get my computer to cooperate with me. First, there we go. First, you introduce yourself and establish your credentials. Next, the critical point. What is the issue that you're addressing? This is the I am here to speak to you about statement. Then you want to explain to people why you care about this. Why are you passionate about this issue? What is the impact that makes it important to you? What is your personal story as you're looking at this issue? Fourth, you want to provide facts and supporting information so that the legislator or the person you're talking to understands why it should be important to them. And last, the ask. What is it you want done? And this guide is this little handy guide is a terrific way to make sure that all of the essential elements of an effective testimony are included in the paper that you write. So let's look at these individually. First, establishing your credentials doesn't mean that you have to be an expert, doesn't mean that you have to be an elected official or a known lobbyist. It just simply means that you're letting the person you're talking to or the board you're addressing, you're letting them know the basics about you, who you are, what your name is, where you live, what district you live in. I'm a member of the 23rd Legislative District. It also gives your contact information. In your written statement, you're going to put down your name, your address, your phone number, email contact information. And if you represent more than yourself, you're going to identify the name of that group and perhaps a small sentence that will let them know who that group is. Just be sure that you are in fact authorized to represent these other people. As soon as you've introduced yourself, you want to tell the decision maker why you're speaking to them. You want them to remember one thing about your testimony. What is it? What's your purpose? What's that one thing? This is your big picture overview statement, the "I'm here to discuss with you" comment. One of the most effective ways, as Allison has already mentioned, one of the most effective ways to make sure that you're remembered and that your message is heard is to tell a personal story. Telling a story about how something personally impacts you creates empathy with the audience, or in this case, the legislators that you would be talking to. Your story can help to build a relationship with that individual. Remember that people in a relationship care about each other, and you certainly want those legislators to care about you and your issue. A personal story helps to make the audience remember you and your point. It makes it memorable. A personal story not only illustrates the point that you're making, but it also adds validity or justification to your presence. The sort of, I'm here, I have a right to be here because I have this, this story to tell you and to ask something of you. So story is really, really powerful. But it's not enough for you to identify your issue and to tell a story. Good testimony also gives the reader, the listener, the legislator, some critical facts and details about your position. See, these decision makers need to know some facts so that when they make the decision, they can back themselves up. So whether it's a legislator, a county commissioner, school board member, doesn't matter, they need to have some facts. And so your facts should be research-based. Provide some statistics if they're available. And then a little later in the session, we'll talk about where you might find some of this evidence for the issues that you're passionate about. So you need to provide evidence or you need to list the consequences of the position that you're taking, whether it's positive or negative, at least if you know them. And this is really important if there's a benefit to the community. It's especially important to have that, because making people happy, making the legislative, making the people happy with the elected official is always a desired outcome from their perspective. Okay, so they're going to welcome any information on consequences that'll help them make that decision better. And finally, you're going to specify the ask. As you close your written statement, you're going to tell the commissioners exactly what it is you want them to do or to consider or to change or how you want them to vote. You want to be sure to leave them with that close. You want to be sure to close your statement, leaving them with the ask. And finally, in that concluding statement, you want to acknowledge them for the difficult task that they have ahead and to thank them for their time. Now, it's unlikely to happen during a hearing. It's unlikely that they'll take the time to ask you any questions, but they might. So you should be prepared for that, just in case. If possible, know what opposing views are, the pros and cons of your request. Know what the opposition is saying so that you can address that early on. And if they ask a question and you don't know the answer to it, it's okay, just say so. I don't know the answer to that. I'd be happy to try and get back to you. So let's do a quick review. I'd like you to take a piece of paper and draw around your hand so that you have the 5 fingers there, and to jot down what those 5 components of effective testimony are. I'm going to give you a couple minutes to do that. Even worse. Okay, let's see how my teaching was and how your memory was. First, you should have had credentials introducing yourself. Next, what your critical point or issue was. Third, what's the personal impact? Why is this important to you? What's your story? Fourth, what facts or evidence do you have that support your position? And last, what was your ask? What is it that you wanted done? How'd you do? Can I enter that in the chat? This is a helpful, handy little guide. I will say that we've used this with young people and with, well, actually we've used it with young and old, and people have responded well to this as an easy way to help them remember what to do as they're preparing their testimony. Any questions on this before I move on? Okay, so you know the parts that you need for your testimony. You have those 5 components. But so what do you say? And how do you say it? Let's focus a little bit more on that content. We're not going to spell out any positions for you. But we're going to give you some time at the end of this session where you can work on your positions. We just want you to be comfortable on how to put it together. So the first thing that you need to do in creating your testimony is to write it out in paragraph form. You're going to use clear, simple language. Keep your sentences short. Keep your sentences short. That'll help you in 2 ways. One, it will make your points very clear and uncomplicated. And 2, if you have to edit, if they don't give you the 3 minutes that they typically do for testifying, they cut you down to 1, it'll make it easier for you to do that. So clear, simple, and short sentences. Arrange them in the order of those 5 essentials: introduction, your issue, your story, the facts, and your ask. And limit yourself to 1 page. Typically 1 page is about 300 to 500 words. And 1 minute of oral testimony is about 150 words. So it's quite likely that you won't be given enough time to say everything, but you can put that on your written document and get it sent in a format that folks will read. And finally, use the templates to try and guide your writing, particularly if you're kind of new at doing this. You don't need to see that. So we have a handout for you. It's called the Quick and Easy Testimony Fill-In. And it will help you a lot with testimony writing if you haven't done it before. It's really just a fill-in form that contains all of those 5 elements. And if we look at it, hi, my name is, I live in such and such a district in such and such a city. I'd like to draw your attention to the issue of. This is important to me because this is where I get to tell my story. And this effectively means the facts and evidence that support my position are here. The consequences of not fixing this problem include? And I ask you to. So it's all right there for you. And if you need additional space, you can just download the document and save the template, type right onto it, and save your completed work. So I want you to take a good look at that, because we're going to go into breakout rooms next. And we're going to ask you to think about the middle of this template, the story that you might have about an issue, or the facts and talking points that you might have to support a topic. What we want you to do, I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to go into a breakout room on one of those topics that you indicated you were passionate about. And with your group, we'd like you to brainstorm the talking points or facts that you might use in your testimony, and to write those down. If you've downloaded that quick and easy form, you can put it right on the form. Otherwise, just put it on your paper. And okay, so as we popped in and out of rooms, what we noticed is that even with a broad topic that you are passionate about, there are many different issues within that topic. But hopefully you've had a chance to at least identify some of those, to talk about some of the talking points or facts that you might use in a testimony. Later this morning, at the end, we're going to go back to those points that you have made, and ask you to put them down, and then be able to practice them for your testifying. So keep those there in the back of your mind as we get further along with the day. And Allison is putting a link in the chat to each of those, each of the forms that are part of this session. So the 5-finger
Handy
guide, as well as the form that we've just used, the quick and easy fill-in form, and the next one that we're about to go and talk about.
I've also put in a link to the folder that has all of our materials for today, if that is easier for folks to.
Now you'll be able to see the PowerPoints, the videos, that kind of thing. So also in those handouts is a template for written contacts. So this template is a more formal document. When you finish your testifying, you want to leave something with the legislator or the committee, the board, whomever. You want to leave a written document with them that will have everything on it. You know, it might be that that you'll get cut short, that you've prepared a 3-minute presentation and they give you one, but you still want them to hear everything you have to say. Putting it in writing and leaving it with them is a way to ensure that they'll get everything. So this template is an example of how you can do that in a 1-page document. It has a space for you to provide your personal information, brief description of your organization if you're representing one, to describe your purpose and ask what those position statements or your story is. There's a box for providing the supporting facts, and a place for you to say, we ask that you, the thank you and your contact information. It's all there on that form. So if you are not representing a group, it's okay. You can still use this form and just put your personal information in. The key is to include your purpose, your talking points or story, your supportive facts, and your ask. So here's an example of one that we have used in our Washington State DKG organization in talking to legislators about concerns around mental health. And you will see that it has the information that we've specified: our ask, our purpose, the stories that we have, And in that little box, and I want to share this template came to us from the Washington State School Retirees Association, and it's been really effective in their advocacy work with the legislature. Putting the facts in that little red box draws the attention of the legislator or the committee, the decision maker, to the information that they need for making a decision. And then using bullets or numbered items makes it easier for them to read. And we used this recently in a discussion with one of the state senators, and she went straight to it, highlighted the various things that were there as she was using it. So it can be a very powerful tool, and definitely something that you want to leave with the representatives or legislators. Any questions about the template?
Pat, the only thing I would mention, and I put this in the chat, is most legislators now want materials in digital form rather
Correct.
than hard copies.
Correct. And this could be sent in a digital format. We have done that as well. So you can, or you can, and then the way they do a lot with the legislators now is they just ask you to type it in the box. But if you have it here in front of you, then you can do that. You can type it into the box that the legislators are providing for you. The important thing is, what are those points that you want to make? What's your story, and what are the facts that support it, followed by your ask. Thank you, Cindy. So sometimes finding the facts or supporting evidence can be a challenge, but it can be made easier if you do a little bit of research. The issue papers that the League of Women Voters has is a great starting point for identifying issues and the facts and talking points around those issues. News articles are also a good source, although these days we have to emphasize the need to use reliable sources to fact check before you put it into your statement. Sometimes researched publications can provide you with good information and facts. Interviews, previous testimony, or even discussion with your friends and neighbors can be a good source of facts and stories. Most professional organizations or advocacy groups, dare I say it, lobby efforts, have papers where you can find positions and get supporting information. You just want to be sure that they're a reputable one. And while I have Cindy there, I'm going to mention her program, because every week Cindy offers a topic with all the supporting stories and newspaper articles and things that are reliable. So that's a good way to get some facts. Again, you just need to be sure that these are reliable, fact-checked, reputable sources, because if you share misinformation, that's just going to hurt your cause. Oops. Didn't mean to do that. Okay. So what's still challenging to you about writing testimony, and what resources look like they might be the most helpful to you? If you can put that in the chat. Any questions that you might have?
Dean
Yeah,
says getting started.
it is a good way to get started.
Pat, can you say a few words about finding reliable sources? How do you
Yeah.
go about ensuring your sources are good?
Well, again, you need to do fact checking, but I find that if I go to reliable organizations, one of my main issues is education, obviously, and so I use resources from organizations that have respectability, and so I'm not just popping up onto the web and downloading any little thing that comes. I want to use journal articles that are from reputable organizations. I want to use the position statements that are coming out of reputable educational organizations. So you do have to do a little bit of checking to make sure that that organization is reputable, but it can help. As I said, in the democracy area, I think the Fix Democracy First and some of the other organizations that are related to that have and use reliable sources. You can check those through. I'm not certain about things in areas like the environment, but I know that there are a lot of scholarly journals that would have good information. So that's that kind of thing.
I just put in the links to the league's current issues page. It's for 2020, but it'll give you the idea. There's links to our issue papers. Every lobby team member on the league lobby team does a kind of fact sheet for that issue for that year and which things we're going to lobby on. Those are hugely beneficial to go check and see. And then obviously your lobby team member is a good person to go check things with if you're ever wondering about a source or a fact.
I would also add, Allison, that the National League's website has some good information on various issues as well.
So I think the biggest concern I'd be careful about is just, internet sources that are, as I see in one of the comments here,
There it is.
propaganda, and you do have to be careful about that. It's not going to help in your discussions if you're using certain news sources and websites.
And Pat, this is Karen. I'm seeing several comments about trying to cut down what you want to say to fit into the allotted time. So you might reference again the difference between your written testimony and actually testifying, because you can put more in your written detail than you might be able to actually speak to.
That's exactly right. And that's why it's so important to have that full written testimony, because even if you're cut down in time, you can leave the full thing. I will say, though, that one page is about all that in terms of the written work. That's about as much as people are going to look at. So this is a good time to go to best practices and to just kind of do a quick review as we wrap up things here. People who have experience in giving and writing testimony recommend that you keep your written testimony brief and to the point. So using things like bullets and numbered sections can help to organize it in a way that will assist you with that. You need to be sure that you are closing with your specific ask. And I know Karen's going to mention this again when we talk about testifying, but both in written and in oral, make sure you close with that specific ask. And leave a copy or provide a copy for the decision maker so that, even if they do cut you off or only give you 1 minute when you were planning for 3, you can still give them everything, and they'll have it in front of them. So some quick do's and don'ts. Your written testimony, the document, should be brief and easy to read. So do use bullets and for your facts section and your positions rather than paragraphs. Do be sure to use keywords and highlight those words so that they pop right out there to the person who's doing the reading. Know your facts and use them, because legislators need some justification for the actions that you're asking of them. And do thank them for their time and recognize the hard work that they have in pulling together, ideas and issues from all sorts of people. Give them that time to do that. Don't be accusatory or partisan in your comments. That will just turn off people and they won't listen to you. And don't go over your time or space limitations. As we said, 3 minutes is about the most that you get for your hearings, and oftentimes it'll be much less than that. So you want to be prepared to know how you could do your paper in 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute, even 30 seconds. What would you say? What's the important thing that you want them to know? So once you've written your testimony, well, then what next? You're going to go ahead and research it, determine that position, and turn it into that one-page written paper. And then you're going to turn that into a script for your oral presentation. And in our next session, after our break, Karen's going to give you some wonderful tips about how to present that script in a way that will be very, very effective. So remember that your legislators and other decision makers want to hear from you. And as Allison pointed out earlier, your contact with them is far more important than any lobby group, any form letters, those kinds of things. And so you are the expert as far as they're concerned, and are the most important person in their hearing process. So you can make a difference if you're when you get to that testifying, if your testimony is well prepared and you're ready to go to it. Any questions? I'm going to stop my share and move to gallery view so I can see folks. And if you have a question, raise your hand or
Put it in the chat.
put it in the chat. Gabrielle.
Hi. I just wanted to say that one of the most important things about advocacy in any forum where you're in front of elected officials is to be consistent in showing up repeatedly. I think what happens, and even for elected officials, they will hear from you once, and then they are bombarded with decision making, and they will forget what your ask was. And my success in getting a state law started in front of a school board in 2014. And I stood in front of that school board every month until 2019. And with that policy win, I was able to take that to my state legislator, and we were able to drop a bill that was signed into law, an educational law in 2020. And when I started my 3-minute conversation in front of that school board to defend my child who had ADHD's right for equity of education and dignity within the educational institutions, I never expected that I would have a bill signed into law by the governor. And I want to speak to how important it is to not feel you have to be perfect when you are taking on a public forum in a public speak. And I think it's really vital for people to know that there is power even if you feel you're stumbling along. And there were plenty of times in my advocacy where I had to, for 3 weeks in the month before the meeting with the board, I would not think about my advocacy because you become all consumed with it. But on the week that I would walk in knowing on that Thursday I would be in front of them for 3 minutes, I absolutely was prepared, because something I would read, something I would see in an article, something would inspire me, and that became my 3 minutes. And I want to say that even though the 3 minutes is short, and we as advocates should lobby our board for more public speak time. I know that when I started my advocacy, I had 5 minutes to speak. Midway through 2.5 years in, this board was exhausted, and they were not, they were literally chipping away at the speak time. And that is something that is showing up repeatedly in a lot of different public venues. Yeah. So I want to say that you don't have to be perfect. You just need to show up, and you just need to know that you'll have amazing 3 minutes of public speak, and other times where you're like, that didn't ring, but you get another chance. And if you really want what you want, then go for that and know what your North Star is for your advocacy. I was given a lot of cookie crumbs throughout my 5 years of lobbying, and I knew that my North Star was policy, because policy was king and queen, and that's what I was aiming for. And even if I received, from the board, teacher training and all of that lovely stuff, that was fine, and it helped the kids, but policy was queen, and that's what I was going for. And that policy win got me a state law. And so I want to say, stay in the game. Don't be fearful. Don't worry about being perfect. Just show up, keep showing up, and know what your North Star is.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you. And I think that is really important. Allison talked about this, and I think you'll hear about it again with Karen's. You don't need to be perfect, but having some preparation done, like with the templates that I've shared today, will hopefully help you relax a little bit so that you can do the best